Do you have something to say?
Clive Barker, probably my favorite writer of all time. My first experience with his work was when I was 20. I picked up his collection, The Books of Blood, and that was a game changer. Horror with high literary qualities, the confusion of pain and pleasure, the imagination, the mixing terror and eroticism. I was blown away. I have since gone on to read everything he's put out, and I have loved it all to varying degrees. So in this video, I will not be taking into consideration the Books of Blood. Those deserve their own dedicated videos. I will not take into consideration his plays or his graphic novels. Those are very different kinds of reading experiences. Instead, I'm going to focus on his novels, novellas, and novelettes, of which there are 16, and I am going to rank them from my least favorite to my absolute favorite. So if you are a Clive Barker fan, I'm very glad that you've clicked on this video. I hope you like it. I hope you consider subscribing. The more subscribers this channel gets, the more motivated I am to keep putting out content, and your support is much appreciated. We'll kick things off with a quick look at all 16 books in chronological order of their publication. And I'll see you on the other side for my ranking of Clive Barker novels and novellas. It's important to note that even the books that figure at the bottom of this ranking, they are still good books, actually. Clive Barker has never put out a dud, in my opinion, but some of his books pack less of a punch than others. So, starting off our ranking at number 16 is Infernal Parade from 2016. Infernal Parade is a short novelette that accompanies a set of figurines. As such, it is not a fully fledged out story, but more of a presentation of these characters. And for what it is, it's not bad. I still recognized Clive Barker's distinctive writing style, and that is always a pleasure to revisit. Beyond that, Infernal Parade didn't do much for me, but as a presentation of a few damned characters, it's not bad. At number 15, Tortured Souls from 2001. This novelette features the characters from a set of action figures of the same name. It's a bit more fleshed out story-wise than Infernal Parade, but it reads more like a skeletal version of a Clive Barker fantasy epic, which isn't a bad thing. No one does world building like Clive Barker, in my opinion, so I enjoy spending time in his larger fantasy epics. But in novelette form, this one's not bad, actually. We have a few Clive Barker staples: the excruciating transformation of the flesh, vengeance left to simmer and embitter the characters, fantastical empires at war or under threat of a revolt. Good times. At number 14, The Adventures of Mr. Maximilian Bacchus and His Traveling Circus from 2009. This is a novella that Clive Barker wrote when he was in his early 20s, before he wrote even the Books of Blood. And at the time, it was not released, but in the late aughts, since Clive Barker hadn't put anything out in a while, the publisher decided, hey, why not put out some of his earlier unpublished works? I was hesitant to read this for a long time. I thought that it was just a money grab, and I didn't want to read a lesser Clive Barker book. I thought that might spoil the image I had of him. So I stayed away from this one for many years. But recently I had a change of mind and I gave it a go. It is one of his lesser works, but it's still highly enjoyable. Lesser Clive Barker is worth more than many authors at their peak. We have a zany character, Mr. Maximilian Bacchus. He and his circus associates, they travel to the end of the world to put on a show. There is a princess. One of the members of the circus falls in love with the princess. She is kidnapped, so they have to go on an adventure to rescue her. It's fun and charming. It has a middle grade feel, similar to The Thief of Always, though not on that same tier. But if there were a sequel to this book, I would read it gladly. Fun characters exploring a fun world. At number 13, Cabal from 1988. A psychiatric patient is led to believe that he is responsible for a series of grisly murders. He flees and takes refuge in an underground city full of strange beings, shapeshifters, and otherworldly creatures. Soon, he and the city are under attack, and they must fight to defend their very existence. Soon, both he and the city are under attack, and they have to fight for their very existence. There are some great scenes in this book, notably when he's at hospital and a fellow patient pulls out a straight razor. Also the scene at the abandoned restaurant, good tension in that scene. Cabal has a lot going for it. But ultimately, I didn't believe the love story that's at the center of this book. I felt the relationship was unearned and frankly uninteresting. So that's what keeps Cabal from ranking higher than it does. Also keeping Cabal from ranking higher is the fact that Clive Barker has put out many amazing books. Cabal is good, I think, but it doesn't reach the level of amazing. At number 12, Galilee from 1998. A powerful family born of the coupling between gods and mortals, their empire is under threat of collapse. So a mortal descendant sets out to write the family's story, which means prying into his family's affairs and uncovering some long-guarded secrets. The matriarch of the family, she is a fascinating character, a demigod who is both revered and feared by the members of the family. We also have a secluded home in Hawaii where the women in the family vacation, and there they are visited by a sailor, a godlike lover. So that's cool. There is great world building here, which is not a surprise for a Clive Barker novel. There are people betraying and backstabbing one another. On the other hand, the women are all in loveless marriages, so that's not fun, and we do spend quite a lot of time in that dynamic. Also, there's the added filter of the manuscript that the protagonist is writing, and that serves to separate further the reader from the action. Those elements detracted a bit from my reading experience, but overall, with the world building, the romance, and intrigue, there's a lot I liked about Galilee. Good book. At number 11, Everville from 1994. A sequel to 1989's The Great and Secret Show, in Everville, we get a sweeping epic that starts in the mid-1800s and takes us all the way up to present day. We have a secret magic called the Art, and a lot of bad people willing to do a lot of bad things to get their hands on it. So the good people need to band together to prevent this from happening. Also, the Dream Sea, known as Quiddity, is under threat. The world building of the Dream Sea and its cities is spectacular. The passages that take place in Quiddity are some of the best fantasy passages Clive Barker has ever penned, I think, and that's saying a lot. At number 10, The Scarlet Gospels from 2015. Nearly 30 years after the publication of his famous The Hellbound Heart, we get its controversial sequel. Controversial because in The Scarlet Gospels, I feel that Clive Barker actively sets out to undermine much of the lore that is set up in the Hellbound Heart and more notably in the movie franchise that book spawned, the Hellraiser series. I can see how fans of the movie franchise might not be happy with the direction the sequel took, but in my opinion, it's Clive Barker's world. He created it. He can do with it what he wants. I'm just happy that with these books, he's allowed us to visit. We are given a stunning tour of hell as our protagonist, paranormal detective Harry Damour, follows Pinhead to the throne of Satan. I loved Pinhead's motivation in this book. It leans heavy on Christian mythology, which normally doesn't work well on me, but here I thought it was done very well and with invention. The Scarlet Gospels has very little to do with the Hellraiser series. Rather, it's an excellent work of dark fantasy where a paranormal detective is summoned to hell to witness and document the momentous events that there soon shall come to pass. At number 9, The Great and Secret Show from 1989. This is the first book of the art and it has a great opening. That is one of the staples of a Clive Barker novel, and The Great and Secret Show is a good example of that. A man working in a mail hub in Nebraska sorts through lost mail and begins to decipher the communications of a secret society. There are tons of fascinating characters, each tied to the practice of a magic called the art. We have to protect the dream sea called Quiddity, a highly inventive, action-packed horror fantasy hybrid from the master of the genre. At number 8, Cold Heart Canyon from 2001. Another great opening. Here we have the assistant to a wealthy Hollywood actress. He's in Romania, commissioned to purchase a monastery, which is not for sale. He buys it anyway and has it shipped brick by brick back to California, where the actress uses it as a foundation to build the mansion in the canyons outside of Hollywood, which would go on to become infamous for the depraved orgies she would host there. Decades later, when a young Hollywood heartthrob undergoes a botched plastic surgery, he hides out in that mansion during his recovery. Cold Heart Canyon is the rare example of a ghost story I actually liked. Here, the ghosts are part human, part beast, and they're all horny, which is fun. An oft overlooked gem in the Clive Barker catalog, and it comes in here at number 8. At number 7, The Thief of Always from 1992. A middle grade novel that works on readers of all ages. A young boy is taken to the holiday house where every day an entire year unfolds with summer and winter and Halloween and Christmas. This book does a wonderful job celebrating the in-between times, finding value in the times that aren't necessarily marked by joy and excitement. I have revisited this book several times. It's a quick read and always a gratifying one. A beloved gem for good reason. At number 6, Sacrament from 1996. Probably his most emotional offering. Sacrament has a photographer return to San Francisco to say goodbye to a friend who is dying of AIDS. While this is happening, he is visited by manifestations of a man he met in childhood, a man whose role is to see to the extinction of random species. This one is dark, but as you'd expect from a Clive Barker novel, it's gorgeously written. And it's probably his most nuanced and believable exploration of love and relationships, be they friendly, romantic, or familial relationships. At number 5, The Damnation Game, his first novel, published in 1985. The Damnation Game might have the best Clive Barker opening scene of them all. Set in Warsaw immediately at the end of World War II, when soldiers and civilians have their adrenaline supply immediately cut off. So to get their fix, they resort to gambling, wagering on anything and everything. The more morbid, the better. A man hears tell of a gambler who never loses, so he seeks him out to challenge him. Decades later, when it's time to pay up, he orchestrates the parole of a criminal so that he can hire him to be his bodyguard. This is an action horror hybrid. It spans several decades with a host of compelling characters and great descriptions of gore and generously dosed depravity to boot. At number 4, Imagica from 1991. When asked what he thinks his best book is, Clive Barker unflinchingly responds, this epic fantasy Imagica. We have a parallel dimension that seeks to unite with ours. We have characters that enter this dimension, some to facilitate this merger, some to prevent it. We have a slave character that can take on the appearance of anyone he's come into contact with. We have a man who's hired an assassin to kill his wife, and his lover who does not want that to happen. We visit majestic landscapes. We visit empires at war or under threat of war. We get Armageddon and rebirth. There is a lot to like in Imagica. At number 3, a controversial pick, I know, but I have to be honest to my experiences. At number 3, Mr. Be Gone from 2007. This book opens by addressing the reader, claiming that it is not a book but a demon and that the reader should burn the book. It begins as a warning, then a threat, then begging and pleading. It is a divisive book, and divisive mainly for this opening. Either you're on board with the conceit or you are not, and I think that will determine whether you end up enjoying this book or not. Me, I was all on board. I thought it was inventive and compelling, and I had a blast. It takes a fairy tale-like tone, but it goes to some twisted and violent places, so don't let the tone catch you off guard. Or do. Maybe that's where some of the fun lies. I understand many Clive Barker fans are going to push back on my high ranking of Mr. Be Gone. We have all had unique experiences with his unique work. Me, I had never read anything like this before. I found it inventive, compelling, action-packed. If you're on board with the conceit and you're up for some dark, demon-possessed fantasy, I give Mr. Be Gone a high recommendation. At number 2, The Hellbound Heart from 1986. A pleasure-seeking criminal, the best kind of criminal, gets his hands on a mystical puzzle box that promises unimagined pleasures. One man's pleasure is another entity's excruciating pain. In this short novel, the boundaries between pleasure and pain are blurred when Julia, the criminal's sister-in-law, lures men to the home to kill them and sacrifice them to her skinless lover. This short novel spawned the movie franchise Hellraiser. It is probably the most important, or one of the most important works of horror to come out of the 1980s. It's good, gory fun. I loved it, but it is not my absolute favorite Clive Barker book. That distinction goes to my number 1 selection, Weave World from 1987. Weave World is the story of the Fugue, a magical world of supernatural beings that once lived harmoniously with humans, but now they are under threat, so they have woven themselves into a rug to hide from their enemies. This book has one of my favorite villains in The Salesman, a swarmy, unscrupulous man who wants to sell the rug to the highest bidder. And he's in possession of a magical jacket that he uses to tempt people to serve his interests. I love the characters in Weave World. I love the action and the tension and the world building. Weave World is a truly great work from a truly great writer, and it is in fact my favorite Clive Barker book of all time. What do you think of my ranking? What is your favorite Clive Barker book? And what is it about this great writer that you like? I always enjoy connecting with you in the comments section. Thank you for hitting like, thank you for subscribing, and thank you for watching. I'll see you at the next video.